Hello, hello. I think I'm live. Just checking. Welcome. My name is Axel. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, we are... I think we're good. Yeah, like I said, my name is Axel from Get Speaking English, and thanks so much for checking out today's live if you are here, or thanks so much for checking out this video afterwards. I know a lot of people check out the videos after on YouTube. Anyways, thanks a lot for being here. Oh, and my mic might be really loud. Am I really, really loud? Maybe I should double check that. Anyways, we are going to be doing a lot, we're going to be looking at, we're going to be talking about fast fashion. Just fixing my audio here really quickly. Maybe this is a little bit better. I have my mic up really, really, really loud because I was doing something last night. Okay. So we're going to be talking about fast fashion today. This is like my last lesson related to the sustainability topic. So if you have been following me, you might know that I have been talking about sustainability for a little while now. I'm about ready to move on to the next topic. Although a lot of these topics always overlap anyways. I'm always trying to find ways to make sure we're always talking about past topics while looking at something new. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about fast fashion today. This article is related also to, or not this article, but this lesson is related to an article that I did a live reading about a few weeks ago, I think. So I should link that. I'll link it in the notes. There are going to be notes after this lesson that will accompany this video. Anyways, today we're going to be doing... we're going to be talking about fast fashion, and we are going to be talking about the part 4 of the speaking paper of the B2 First and the C1 Advanced exam. So that is what we're going to be doing. This is going to be an interactive lesson, so you are going to be able to contribute to the notes. You'll be able to put your ideas in the chat. So I have Facebook open. Facebook is live. I can see you there. I also see you on YouTube. So YouTube is open as well. So you can comment in either of those places, and I will be able to see your comments. And as we go along, we'll be able to brainstorm ideas and different things to talk about the questions and the activities I have coming up. I'll be able to take your notes, I'll be able to put them, add them to my notes, and then afterwards I will compile everything together, put it together as a document, upload it with the video on YouTube, and we'll be able to continually learn about this topic afterwards. So feel free to say hello if you are out there. Let me know you are alive. Don't be shy. I know I'm always shy when it comes to participating in things online, so I totally get it. But yeah, don't be afraid, you know, put out your ideas. You can't really say anything wrong here. Anyways, so this lesson is aimed at preparing students for the B2 First and the C1 Advanced exam. So we're going to be looking at part 4 of the speaking paper. We're going to be looking at some couple questions similar to the ones you might find in that part of the speaking paper. However, a lot of the words, a lot of the phrases and vocabulary we are going to discuss will also be helpful for the IELTS exam, for example. Also, general English exams, and just anybody who is looking to speak English at an upper intermediate to an advanced level. Even some of the language is, you know, definitely applicable for those wanting to do a C2, right? Reach proficiency in English, right? So, you know, as we get more advanced, we just want to be able to speak more accurately about topics and become more fluent, build our vocabulary. So all of it is relevant for anybody who's looking to sort of reach those advanced levels. All right. So we are going to do a bit of a warm-up to begin with. We're going to look at some images. We're going to sort of brainstorm some vocabulary about fast fashion. And then we're going to discuss a couple questions, so similar to ones that you might get on part 4 of the speaking paper. So we'll brainstorm some ways to maybe talk about those questions, see what kind of vocabulary phrases come up, that sort of thing. And then afterwards, like I said, I'm going to take our notes, I'll put everything together, upload it on YouTube, and you'll be able to check it out there. And that's going to be really great. All right. Also, like I mentioned, the this live and the activities that I've taken from this actually came from the lesson that I've kind of prepared around this article. So the other week I read, ultra fast fashion is a disturbing trend undermining efforts to make the whole industry more sustainable. So you could check out that live, listen to the pronunciation. I've talked about the vocabulary phrases, things that came up there. And if you want to talk about this more in depth with me directly, you are more than welcome to book either a conversation class or a lesson about this. So conversation class is more just speaking, and I will give feedback and things like that. But if you would like some feedback about your writing, for example, activities and more specific feedback about your pronunciation and fixing your grammar and things like that, then you could do lessons about this as well. So I will leave information about that in the description below, so you can definitely check that out. And also, somebody was asking me, somebody had asked me if I was available just to chat. So I'll let you know that I typically don't just chat to practice English for free with people. I typically only speak with students, right? Because obviously this is my business, right? However, I do acknowledge that one-on-one classes are not acceptable or not accessible for everybody. So I would love to be able to organize some group activities. So, you know, the more the more people we can get involved, the more likely that will happen. So, you know, feel free to spread the word if you think that what I'm doing is really valuable. Feel free to invite your friends, or even just, you know, share it on Facebook, something like that, so we can get more people involved, because I would definitely like to do both group classes, so smaller group classes, and then some sort of form of maybe speaking practice or something, maybe on Discord over the weekends or something like that. So those are things that I'm thinking about. So hello, Miranda, welcome. How was your weekend, I guess? your Sunday and Monday. How are you doing? Yeah, so like I said, spread the word and we'll be able to organize something. All right, so like I said, we were going to start. Oh, thanks, Adriana. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, so like I said, like I you know, available for one-on-one classes, obviously, right? But I do know that it's not accessible for everybody, so I would love to, if I can get more people on board, I would love to organize some either group classes or speaking practice sessions on Discord, maybe, or something like that, so more people can participate. Okay, so let's do this activity then. Let's brainstorm some vocabulary about fast fashion. I have a couple of images here. I have 5 images here. And let's look at them and let's think how they relate to the topic of fast fashion. So I have a couple different ones here. I have a pen somewhere. There we go. Let's talk about A. First of all, let's talk about A. Let me know what you think about these images and how do you think they relate to the idea of fast fashion, and I will put together our notes here. But when you look at this image, right, we see a clothes rack filled with, articles of clothing, right? And I don't know about you, but for me, I feel like this definitely maybe represents, the overproduction of garments, right? In the fashion industry, right? They're always, trying to produce more and more and more things, right? And trying to convince people to buy those things, right? So they're always overproducing, as in they're producing too many articles of clothing, right? And this word here, garments, is kind of great. It's sort of just another way that we can refer to an article of clothing. But yeah, so that's definitely sort of something. Let me know too if you have some ideas. I would think too that, so trends are always changing, right? So trends are always changing, right? Which it creates excessive inventory. So constantly changing trends creates maybe excessive inventory. So inventory is basically the collection of things that a shop would sell. So anything that's at a store, that would be the inventory, and people can come in, they can buy that, right? But obviously fast fashion causes us to create, too much excessive levels of inventory, right? Like there's so many things, you can't possibly buy all of it, right? So as a result, a lot of it maybe ends up in landfills and things like that. So it's maybe about fast fashion, like it is more cheap material, using vulnerable people with low wages. Exactly, yeah, right. Causing environmental issues as well. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, we can see in B, right? We have an image of a landfill, right? So we have a landfill. Just like piled high with, textile waste. And anything related to textiles, that has to do with fabric, like woven fabric. And basically, yeah, woven fabrics and things that are used to make clothing or other similar items, right? And it has a huge environmental impact, right? Like you said, the clothes are cheap, right? And maybe made with, low quality materials. And they're disposable, right? They're not designed to be clothing that will last 10, 20, 50 years, right? Like once upon a time, things were made a lot sturdier with better quality materials. Nowadays, everything is created so it can be worn a few times and then you would throw it away, right? So, they're poorly made, right? And not good for wearing over the long run. Yeah, so definitely some issues. You also mentioned too about, like vulnerable people, right? So potentially C, right? maybe showing some vulnerable people, right? More specifically, you know, people working in the workshops, right? You know, you might say that, you know, is the fashion industry exploits people, exploits vulnerable people, like you said, right? You know, who are basically, you know, forced to work for low wages, right? So that's definitely a thing, right? Or also, you know, they are maybe like forced to work in unsafe conditions, right? In the factories, for example. You might hear the word sweatshop come up as well too, right? So like the places where clothing is put together or manufactured, right? They're typically really cramped, right? Poorly regulated, right? And they have to work for very low pay, right? How about D? How do you think D relates to this topic? What would you say about this girl here? She has like this pile of clothes, right? Let me know what you think about her, maybe, and how this image relates to fast fashion. She looks like she could be an influencer, right? So somebody who has a presence online, right? And then uses that presence to influence their followers to do different things. And we have this word here actually on this image here. So it's huge fashion haul. So a haul is that, it's that practice where influencers or just like people in general, they'll buy a lot of things at once. So you can see here that, you know, this person, it looks like they bought, you know, all of these articles of clothing, all of these articles of clothes all at once with the intention of maybe trying them out and things like that, seeing what they like, what they don't like. But most likely they're only wearing the clothes for a very short amount of time, right? And then they would just, you know, they would throw it away, right? But yeah, I was, you know, those fashion hauls, right? Maybe promote overconsumption for sure, right? So the idea that we buy too many things and we're using too many resources, right? We're consuming too much, right? And potentially to this image also, you know, we could just say reflects consumer behavior, or maybe it also, like, not just reflects its consumer behavior, but it definitely you know, inspires and encourages consumers to behave the same way, right? So people have high demand about clothes at some point, caused by fashion or commercial at some point. Yeah, it's like part of their, like you said, like the commercial tactics or something, right? The strategy that companies use to convince people to buy these products, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so maybe like you know, represents how maybe companies use influencers and other, like you said, tactics to create high demand for products in consumers, something like that, right? So Yeah, I like the word tactics, right? Like strategies. Because it's a marketing thing, right? Brands they'll maybe have sponsorships and partnerships and things like that too, right? So, yeah, absolutely. I think, and finally too, we have this one here, right? E, just bags of clothing, right? I mean, obviously, we can see that it has one of the main companies, main ultra fast fashion brands, right? Shein, right? But you know, you look at the packaging, right? They use cheap plastic bags, right? For shipping, which obviously they're bad for the environment, right? So, and you know, the bags are bad for the environment, but also too, there's just, you know, a huge environmental impact, right? Of shipping articles of clothing across the world, right? And doing that all the time because we're always buying things super cheap online, right? So, huge environmental impact, right? Yeah. So lots of kind of interesting things to sort of think about, right? Yeah, any other thoughts about these images before we move on? Also, let me know too, like, do you buy from these companies? Do you tend to support these companies? I know people who do, I know people who don't, but I feel that it's hard. It's getting harder these days to, you know, go to the mall and get high quality products, right? It can be really tricky. And even too, shopping secondhand, a lot of it is filled with cheaper clothing these days and things, right? So it's kind of having its impact everywhere, right? They're definitely appealing too, right? You know, people having issues with money and things like that, right? So they definitely fill a void. All right. So now that we have some ideas, maybe some ideas about how to talk about fast fashion and the various issues surrounding fast fashion, let's check out a couple questions. So like I said, we're going to be looking at some questions similar to the ones on part 4 of the speaking paper of the B2 First and the C1 Advanced exam. So just a really quick reminder about how this works. This final part of the speaking paper, it is a discussion between candidates. So you're always going to be doing the exam with another candidate, possibly 2 other people, but this is basically a conversation. And these are very sort of big picture, sort of abstract ideas. So the first part of the exam, a lot of those questions are more about you, your experiences, your community, things that are kind of related to you, right? And then at the end of the exam, everything kind of opens up a little bit to make you potentially talk about things that aren't directly related to you so much, but just about, you know, the world and how things are in general. There are always questions though that people will have something to say about though. So you don't have to worry too much about, you know, the questions like, oh, some people really worry that they won't have anything to say. But on Cambridge exams, usually the questions have to do with things that everybody has some familiarity with or some experience with. So you don't have to worry too much about it. So what's going to happen is the examiner is going to ask either you or your partner a question. that person should respond, give their opinion, and then, you know, that person can ask the other candidate their opinion and engage them in a conversation. If not, the examiner will ask them the same question, but the idea is to have a conversation about the question. And a final point too, that this topic, like whatever you are talking about in this part of the exam, is going to be related to whatever you talked about in part 3 of the exam. So, yeah, so you're going to have basically a discussion with a candidate. So just, you know, you want to continue that discussion. You don't want to repeat things over and over again, right? But you tend to want to carry on the discussion either until you run out of things to say, which naturally happens in a conversation. You run out of time, or the examiner stops you, right? So because it is a conversation, you should try to keep your contributions a bit short. So it's not a monologue, right? You want to be able to engage in a nice conversation, right? So keep your contributions relatively short, but you can agree and disagree with what your partner says. You can ask them questions. If you are very strong at asking questions, I definitely encourage people to ask questions. So you can ask them questions and just find ways to build on and add new things to the conversation so it doesn't become repetitive. All right, so let's maybe talk about this question then. So what do you think are some of the main problems with fast fashion? So some of the main problems with fast fashion, and I guess a lot of the vocabulary we talked about in the first part is gonna come back. What do you think are the main problems with fast fashion? So honestly, I don't know what the brand is, honestly. Depends on the people, financial condition. Yeah, they can just buy a bazaar or buy online. Like cannot afford either of these cheap brands. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, they're cheap, right? But they're also not always the cheapest option. You can definitely sort of come across other cheaper things if you go to, you know, secondhand shops maybe, or the bazaar, like you said, or bazaars. Yeah, it kind of depends, right? Yeah, so some of the main problems with fast fashion. So let me know what you think. I mean, for me, I suppose the environmental impact is probably the biggest issue, at least in my opinion. Right, like we already mentioned, it generates massive amounts of waste, right? It creates huge amounts of waste, right? And we mentioned too, you know, they tend to use non-sustainable materials, right? Like for example, you know, one really common thing to use, maybe like lycra or like polyester, for example. I mean, there's a whole bunch of sort of fabric with almost like plastic woven into it, right? But polyester, for example, is made from fossil fuels, right? It's kind of like an oil, almost byproduct, right? Which takes, you know, hundreds of years to break down, right? So, and by breaking down, we mean basically to the parts sort of deteriorate enough that eventually it naturally goes back into the environment, right? But literally hundreds of years for that to happen, right? So really, really, really long time, right? They also put microplastics into the water whenever the clothes are washed, right? And microplastics, these are like microscopic little itty bitty teeny tiny bits of plastic that ends up in waterways, right? And then it ends up in the food chain, right? Because fish eat it, and then animals eat the fish, and microplastics end up in ourselves as well too. Yeah, so environmental industry, right? Dyeing products. Yeah, also that too, right? So exactly, the dyeing process releases a lot of chemicals. Like you said, like it flows into the water. Yeah, exactly. So the dyeing process releases a lot of chemicals that flow into waterways, maybe. So waterways like rivers and harbors and things like that. So it goes back into the oceans, basically. Maybe they can reuse materials. Yeah, so we'll talk about maybe how to fix some of these problems in a second. But yeah, being able to reuse some of the materials could definitely be a solution, right? A lot too, another thing too, just the production process consumes like huge amounts of water and energy and raw materials, right? Like it just requires so much to make these products, right? And we just take it, use those materials temporarily, and then they end up in landfills, right? So that's definitely a big thing. Another issue too, right? Just like the exploitation. And I can see you can't see what I'm writing. The exploitation of workers, maybe, which we talked about a little bit before, right? So a lot of workers receive, poor wages, right? Essentially, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely focusing on using organic materials would be a better solution than producing fabric that essentially has plastics and things in it, right? Yeah. So like a lot of workers, right, receiving poor wages, right? A lot of them may work really long hours too. Maybe they work, I don't know, like about 14 to 16-hour days, for example, right? In order to meet deadlines, especially during, peak seasons. So peak seasons as in like times of the year when people are buying more clothes, like, kind of around this time, I would say is sort of a peak season because it's Christmas, right? Everybody's buying stuff to give away and things like that, right? But other different, different times of years in different countries are like have these periods where everybody's shopping for things and stuff like that, right? So it kind of, there's probably a spike, right, in sales. I would watch a documentary, right? People in poor towns in very poor conditions, but they do not have any other choices, right? Yeah, exactly, right? They receive poor choices a lot of workers receive poor wages, but due to, you know, lack of job opportunities, they cannot, they have no other options for employment, right? And also too, yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, you know, exploiting, you know, children, right? Exactly. Maybe like unethical practices like using child labor, right? Exactly. Yeah, so that's like a huge issue, right? Child labor. So having children not only work in the factories, but also too doing things that are incredibly dangerous, right? So yeah, so huge issues, right? Yeah, so I feel like these are probably maybe like the two biggest ones, right? Like the exploitation of the workers and maybe the environmental, just how destructive it is, right? So let's maybe think then. So now let's think of some solutions. Let's think of some solutions. What could be the solutions to some of these problems? So let's maybe think of some solutions now to the environmental impact. So maybe here, environmental impact. Sorry, this will be issue number 1. I can't write this morning. I'm so tired. Number 1. Our solutions. So yeah, let's scroll back up because I know you had a couple good ideas. Let's see. Okay, so you mentioned using reusing materials, right? Maybe materials can be recycled or reused. Exactly. So that's definitely a big a huge thing, right? Recycling, making sure that the resources that were used to make the process stay in the, you know, are used as long as possible, right? Instead of just putting them into landfills, right? And you mentioned also too, right, using maybe use sustainable materials like organic cotton or linen, right, made from natural fibers. So definitely, that's definitely a good idea, I think, right? Yeah, you said organic, so use sustainable and organic materials like cotton and linen, right? Made from natural fibers. Because if something is made from something natural, then it's going to be able to break down more easily, right? And go back into nature and sort of continue the natural cycle, right? So that's definitely a good idea. Any other ideas, maybe some solutions to these environmental problems? Let's see, maybe materials can be recycled or reused. Maybe some types of regulation. Yes, okay. To crack down on them and make them concerned about this topic. Yeah, so yeah, maybe like regulations. So maybe like create regulations that force maybe companies to maybe change their practices to crack down on maybe environmentally destructive practices and force them to make, I don't know, better choices. I mean, that's definitely, yeah, maybe something like that. Definitely, right? Maybe more fines or more levies or something like that. More fines or levies for companies that use unsustainable practices. So a levy is basically a tax. It would be like a tax on goods or something like that, that they would pay to the government, basically, for, in this case, maybe using environmentally destructive practices or something like that. Definitely, yeah, so to be able to crack down on that. Exactly. And how about maybe the exploitation of workers, right? So again, too, I suppose, you know, here we could think about maybe creating some regulations here as well, right? So maybe stricter regulations about how, I don't know, workers are paid and how much they receive. Potentially something like that. You know, they can ensure workers are paid a living wage. So a living wage as in they're receiving enough money that they need in order to live a reasonable life, right? That could be tricky because obviously the price of clothes might increase, right? But you would always have to like maybe like normalize, you know, paying more for high quality clothes that will last a very long time, right? Because I think right now people are encouraged to buy very, very cheap clothing, like articles of clothes, right? But they don't expect the clothes to last for a really long time, right? It's normal to just wear something for maybe, you know, a year or two or something and then have to like get more and more and more, right? Maybe. So although too, I mean, you know, I say that you have to like pay more for clothing, but I mean these companies are making billions of dollars, right? So maybe they need to just normalize paying their executives less or something, you know, paying the people at the top less money and giving some of that money to the workers, maybe. Yeah. So maybe like cut profits for, you know, CEOs so workers can make a livable wage. Yeah, so maybe we don't even have to necessarily pay more for clothes. We just have to redistribute the wealth a little bit more reasonably. What else do you guys think we could do? Anyway, they are putting on this clothes high prices at least. Yeah, there's a huge markup, right? Yeah, there's a huge markup on clothing. As in, like you said, they always price it a lot higher than what it took to make the article of clothing, right? So they should be able to pay people at least more than they currently get, right? So yeah, if they could just like take some of that and give it back to the people, then it would be a lot better, right? Yeah, be able to get like a reasonable wage, right? Definitely. I have another thought about this maybe about the, I suppose like the environmental impact, but maybe in general, just you know, it would be better to keep using articles of clothing for as long as possible, right? So maybe we could like educate or offer workshops about repairing clothes, right? So instead of throwing something away when has a rip or something like that, we could actually, they could know how to fix it. Because I feel like a lot of people don't know how to fix things these days. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed that. But yeah, those kind of skills have kind of we're kind of losing those skills. So maybe offer workshops or classes about repairing clothes so people can fix their clothing, potentially. Or offer places where people can take their clothes and get them fixed for cheap, maybe? I don't know. People's awareness as well. Yeah, we could raise their awareness. Yeah, just like ways, just raise consumers' awareness, maybe, about the impact of fast fashion so they can make better choices. Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea too. Yeah, they could use sustainable techniques for making clothing as well, right? So generating the electricity through solar panels and things like that. That's a really good idea. Yeah, that's nice. Find ways to what did you say? Use sustainable techniques to make the clothes, such as, I keep going off screen, such as such as, you know, using solar panels to generate the electricity used in the factories. Yeah, definitely. Using solar panels generate the. Yeah, that's definitely a really good idea, right? Yeah, because it's not just about the clothes too. It's like the whole system that's used for creating the clothes too. Shipping as well, right? That's like another element, right? How we send it from store to place, right? That's another thing, right? I mean, right now all of these clothes they're very far away, right? So maybe bringing back, you know, factories or that are more local, right? Produce things locally, maybe, instead of shipping things across the country or across the world, right? Maybe something like that. This kind of brings me to my third and final question. Do you actually think that people should be made aware of the impact of fast fashion, or the impact that fast fashion has on the environment? Like, should people even know? Do you think that will make a difference? Because I can kind of see, you know, a couple different opinions, right? So do you think people should be made aware of the impact that fast fashion has on the environment? Because you could argue that, you know, it may, like, awareness may not make a huge difference, right? You know, it might. Wait, let me grab this question. Let me know what you think about this. Yeah, so do you think people should be made aware of the impact that fast fashion has on the environment? Yeah, I was gonna say, like, because some people might argue that, you know, people are already aware that fast fashion isn't good for the environment, but they still buy it because it's convenient and more affordable than the alternatives, right? So that's kind of sort of one thing against that, right? Like, maybe, I mean, you know, they shouldn't really be made aware because it's not going to make a difference anyways, since it's the most convenient and affordable option out there right now, right? Maybe. Or two, right? Like, you know, no, because, you know, everyday normal people are not the problem, you know, it's the companies that are responsible for using these destructive practices, right? And maybe governments need to crack down on them or something. I don't know. What do you think? I sort of went right into the no, they shouldn't. But there is definitely, I think you could agree. See, I think generally people do not care. People love fashion. Yeah, right. Like, I think it's a tricky one. Yeah, I feel like people just it's the same with buying any product, right? I think like people just like things, right? So it's kind of tricky because, like, is it really gonna change how they act, right? So maybe it's the governments that need to crack down on these companies and make them do better for the environment, right? But you could argue though, yeah, you know, like, I guess, you know, people need to understand. Actually, I'm gonna there you go. Yes, people need to understand the impact, damage caused by fast fashion, so they can make informed and sustainable choices. So choices that are, you know, something informed, that it's based on having all the information, so people can basically use their brains and figure out the best thing for them to do. Yeah, they love to follow trends as well. So if it became popular, yeah, I suppose you could if you kind of see them doing that too, right? Like, where things that are environmentally friendly are becoming more popular, right? So if they can find a way to make that popular, then they could probably convince people to make sustainable choices. Yeah, is it not possible to make clothes that are affordable and not that much harmful? Yeah, you'd think that it would be possible to make clothes that are affordable and not harmful. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I would think that it would be possible. So I'm sure if it was financially like profitable and appealing, that they would find a way to do it, no problem. Or if, like you said, if it became really trendy and they knew that people were gonna buy it, that they would do it, right? So yeah. Yeah, so yeah, definitely things. You could potentially argue, I mean, maybe say that, you know, yes, they should be made aware, but, you know, awareness campaigns should also offer, you know, practical alternatives or solutions. So, for solutions, for example, they should maybe promote sustainable brands or second-hand shops so people know who to buy from. Because it's almost not enough just to tell people that they shouldn't do something, but you need to also inform them about what they can do as an alternative, maybe. You know, because if you tell people just don't do fast fashion, but they may not know where else to get stuff from. Especially if they don't have money, right? And fast fashion it's usually really cheap, right? So lots of things definitely some things to buy from. Yeah, in a secondhand shop, like a secondhand shop or a secondhand store, that would be a place where you would just buy clothes or articles, like household items, things like that have already been used at least once, right? So that were previously owned or pre-owned, that sort of thing. Yeah, so some good things to think about. Do you like to buy from secondhand shops? Or some people don't even like buying from secondhand shops. They you know, I've heard people comment that the clothes are dirty and things like that, so people aren't always comfortable buying from secondhand shops, but I personally enjoy trying to find interesting things in secondhand shops. So, but I might be a little bit weird. Anyways, yeah, all right. So, well, that was an interesting discussion. We had some really good ideas come up, so I really appreciate your thoughts. So, yeah, I think we came up with a lot of interesting ways to think about this topic and how the impacts of fast fashion, but also some interesting solutions about how to maybe fix the problem. So really good ideas, definitely. Yeah, so super cool. I really, really, really appreciate it. So I'm gonna wrap up. Like I said, if you are interested in talking about this topic more one-on-one, you're more than welcome to book a conversation class with me. Or if you want to get some feedback too about your writing or anything like that, we could also do lessons as well. I definitely bought from secondhand shops. You can definitely find, yeah, you can find a lot of good things, but you gotta hunt. Yeah, nowadays it's quite expensive as well. I agree with you. I remember back when shopping secondhand was uncool, so it was very cheap. It seems like it's almost trendy now, so they have jacked up the prices. They've increased the prices. Yeah, because it's almost trendy now, right? And new can be better for sure, but yeah, you can find really good things though from secondhand shops and stuff like that too, though. Yeah, so yeah, lots of things to think about. Okay, yeah. So, conversation classes, like I said, and like I said too, so I mentioned earlier too, so I just typically don't just do chats one-on-one with people, but again, if I can get more people doing more affordable group classes or even some like speaking practice on Discord, those are things that I'm interested in potentially arranging. So we just need more people on board. But I think that that would be a lot of fun to be able to have some discussion, sessions of some discussion practice and things like that, speaking practice on Discord or something like that in little groups. That'd be really good. In group classes where we could talk about these articles and questions and details in detail. Anyways, okay. So I'm gonna wrap up now. I will be back tomorrow for a crossword. So tomorrow at, what is it, 1300 UTC? Yes, 1300 UTC. So tomorrow I'm going to be doing a crossword. So I'll be doing crosswords Wednesday through Saturday. So I am going to do that. So feel free to come hang out with me, do a crossword while I drink my coffee in the morning. It's been really interesting. So I've been really enjoying doing it. So feel free to come out for that. And my next live lesson is going to be an article reading. I think I'm going to be doing it on Sunday, but I have to confirm a couple of things. So, but the crossword stream is going to happen tomorrow at the usual time. So I look forward to doing it with you guys since it's a lot of fun. All right, thanks so much for your help. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for your support. Really appreciate you guys being here. All right, and I hope you have a really good day then. All right, thanks everybody. Okay, bye.